we've seen much more localism. We've seen a return to local supply chains, to value and local employment. And I think over the next year, that's really going to be critical. So having the right place-based communication strategy is going to be really, really important as we look towards a domestic market and reconnecting Scots with Scotland. So we will be launching a major national campaign, and hopefully you guys will be able to hook into that. We've got a busy agenda today, as you can see, split into two parts. At the start, we're going to hear from Gareth and Chris from Message Matters. Message Matters are the PR comms company that supports Scotland's towns. Very experienced and knowledgeable in this field. And we've also got Jamie Smith coming up at the latter part of part one. Jamie has again worked with STP over the years in terms of creating digital content to promote places and has a lot of expertise. So welcome and thanks for attending today. If you are looking at how to engage with the seminar, there's a number of ways that you can share ideas or ask questions. So there's a chat box feature, so that will allow you to talk to fellow attendees within the audience. There's a Q&A function which will send questions to the panelists, and I'll host a Q&A once we've heard our initial speakers. So also you can use social media. So please, if you get a chance, at Scotland's Towns, #LoveLocal, let people know that you're engaged today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over now to Gareth Brown from Message Matters, who's going to talk through effective communications and marketing campaigns.
Thank you very much, Phil, and good morning. If you just bear with me a moment, I'm going to share my screen. Yes, so good morning. My name is Gareth Brown, and today I'm joined by my colleague Chris Story. We are associates at Message Matters, which is a Scottish-based strategic communications consultancy firm. We work all across Scotland, but also the UK and Ireland as well. What I'm going to talk about today is a very specific way or mindset of communicating, and we call it storytelling, and it's something that's emerged in our industry over the last 10 years as a kind of strategy and practice, although, as you know, stories have been around for much longer than that. So what we'll cover, I'll cover a wee bit about what I actually mean by storytelling and using storytelling as a way to think about your communications. So inevitably many of you on here will be either selling a product or advertising a service or trying to encourage people to do something. So storytelling adds an extra layer to that, which hopefully just makes that all a wee bit more effective. I'll talk a wee bit about behavior change, and then I'll move on to the sort of the practicalities of what I mean by storytelling and how you can use it in your local town or organization. So I suppose the best way to think about storytelling is about building a narrative around what is essentially a very simple message. So whether you're trying to encourage people to shop local in your town, or purchase a product or use a service, storytelling is a way of building a narrative around that very simple call to action, which adds an additional layer of emotion to your message and just creates a much more compelling end product for your audience. And it's sort of, the reason why it's very effective is because as well as just stating what you want to achieve or what you're asking people to do, it hooks your audience in and it builds a relationship, a sort of two-way relationship with them as well. The first step in thinking about how to start telling your story at a local level is to ask yourself what we would call the big questions. So the first is, who's your audience, or who are your audiences? So whether is that consumers, is it local government, is it, it could be a wide range of or it could be stakeholders. what do you want to say to them, or how do you want to speak to them? What is your message to them, and what do they want to hear? And we'll come on to that a bit later, because those two can conflict. And what do you want them to do as a result? So when you're sitting down with a pen and paper and starting to think, how do we get our town or our organization on the map? How do we get people to start doing the types of things we want them to do? These are the big questions that you have to ask yourself. I'm going to talk very briefly about behavior change, because one of the advantages of storytelling is it embeds what we call behavior change and communications into what we do. And that's very important, because all the communications you undertake, whether it's a Facebook campaign to advertise a local town market or whatever that might be, ultimately you're using it to advance the objectives of your organization or your town, and whatever those might be. So it's important to think about communications as something that empowers wider corporate objectives, rather than something that just sort of sits to the side and is something slightly different. And behavior change really in your context is about getting people to do something that they weren't doing before. So whether it's buying something or doing a certain behavior. So in the context of COVID, if people have been shopping on Amazon, which many of them have, you may now want them to stop doing that and start looking local for their books or their garden furniture or whatever it is that you're doing. And at its heart, it's good old-fashioned persuasion. And persuasion is about why and how, not necessarily what and when. I think often in communications, when we're advertising, we focus a lot on what and when we want people to do things, and we forget to tell them why it's important that they do it and how they do it. When you're thinking about embedding good behavior change into your story, think East, easy, attractive, social, and timely. And if you can get these right, you're not going to be far off. So when we talk about easy, I mean, it speaks for itself. If you want somebody to do something, make it as easy as possible to do that. So it's trying to keep your message as simple. Harness the power of defaults, because we have a strong human nature to opt for a default kind of mindset when we're making decisions, and make it as practically easy as you possibly can for somebody to do something. So there's a wee example of some quite effective communications from the House of Commons about registering to vote. Attractive. This is about creating something that will grab people's attention, that appeals to their eye or their taste or their smell, or something that really grips them. So think about when you're developing your strategy, how can you make your story and your message visually or attractive? So think about color and images, thinking about very personalized, localized, tailored messages. And I suppose what you're trying to do is make whatever it is you want somebody to do, make it feel valuable. So scarcity is a good example there. When something feels scarce or exclusive in some way, it feels like it has greater value. So here's an example. You wouldn't believe that this is actually advertising earphones. But again, it's just immediately very gripping and really brings you in. Social, this is a very important component. We're all very social animals, and we rely on and are influenced on what others do around us. And I suppose one of the things that can be really effective is if you can, through your communications and your story, if you can encourage people to make some form of social commitment that involves other people. And this is where people become a very important part of your story, particularly in the context of town centres. If you can make people feel a sense of connection to other people in doing whatever it is you want them to do. So, for example, if somebody is shopping local, they're supporting somebody who is a local citizen who owns the local butchers. So there's an example of how you take something that is shop local and make it more social and more personal. One of the things we've seen in communications as well is the emergence of what's called influencers. And that's effectively trying to find people who are well known and well liked in your field or your area, and encouraging them to get behind your campaign or your cause on the understanding that other people are likely to do it, and it's something that has emerged as a very effective discipline. So there's an example of Rupert Grint from Harry Potter, and how children in need have used him to kind of get their message out there. Now, I'm not suggesting you'll be able to get Rupert Grint, but there are lots of local people in the community who are well known and well liked, and who can lend a hand to your cause. And the final one sort of speaks for itself. It's timely. People are most likely to do something whenever there is a time imperative to it. So there's a good example there of how Money Supermarket has used that quite effectively in terms of renewing your car insurance. Think Oasis. So we talked about East, now think about Oasis. So when you've got your story when you've asked your big questions, when you've got the sort of change in behavior that you want to bring about, and you've got a sort of message together, next thing is planning a communication strategy or a storytelling strategy. This doesn't need to be 4 pages long, but if I could leave you with anything today, is the importance of, I cannot overemphasize the importance of planning. It keeps you focused and it'll help you deliver much better results. A plan can be a single piece of paper, but it just sets out clearly these things, and it will help you keep on track and get you the best results possible. So we've got objectives. They speak for themselves. Be specific and be clear. Don't have them woolly. Be clear about who you're speaking to. So who are your audience? How do they access information? What do they want to hear? Your strategy is, what is your message and what are your tactics? So that's the sort of East and the behavioral change stuff that we talked about a moment ago. Your implementation is physically, what are you actually going to do? So are you going to run a Facebook campaign? For how long? Etc. And then your evaluation, which is linked to your objectives, is essentially looking at how are you going to tell that you have been successful. And if you can embed Oasis into a small plan for your communications in your town or for your story, you'll be along the right lines. I'm just going to hold this up for a moment. Picking the right channels is a very, very important part of your strategy. And we mentioned that a moment ago about audiences. You need to put your information and your content where your audiences are. So just just before I wind up, I'll briefly just sort of draw out a few. So you'll see Facebook there. The typical demographic is between 25 and 54. Majority of users are women. Instagram is obviously a different kettle of fish altogether. 18 to 29, much more visual, much more culture, art. So when you're thinking about how you're telling your story, think about this and think about what is the right channel for you. And here's some good examples in Scotland of good sort of place-based brands and that we've come across. And finally, for me, some top tips. So be clear about what you want to achieve. It's not just communications for communication's sake. It's all about audience. Be really clear about who you're speaking to. And that's not just about who they are, but it's also about how they consume information. Oh, that's my time up. It's about how they consume information. Develop your plan and stick to it. We talked a moment ago about picking the right channels, not just what you think is handy or what you happen to have. Have good content, good creative content, use good photographs, get good infographics, invest in the creativity. Invest in your own skills. So many of you won't be dedicated communications professionals. Communicating might just be a very small part of your role, but there's lots of free resources out there. So Google Digital Garage has a very, very good online digital marketing course for beginners, as it were. And it's really very effective and very, very good. And I suppose the final thing for me is tell a story. Don't just sell a product or push a service. Try and tell a story. And think about why people should do what it is you want them to do. And that's it from me.
That's fantastic, Gareth. Really, really helpful in terms of the concept of oasis, of east, of the various mediums to deploy at the local level. So for participants, we will be sharing a post-event report with the presentation slide packs, so don't panic, we will be getting all of this issued out. And just a reminder for everyone, the Towns and Bids Resilience and Recovery Fund, the Scottish Government's investment to support the recovery of our towns, is live just now. So if you do have an opportunity, get onto the scotlandstowns.org website and start talking about or thinking about making an application, because it could fund some of the activity that we're talking about just now. So thanks for that, Gareth. I'm going to hand you over now to Chris from Message Matters, because Chris is going to give you an overview of how you engage with local media. I think, again, it's really, really critical that you build positive relationships with your local media. So over to Chris, who's had a career within that particular sector.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me okay. I'll just share my screen with you. Hopefully it'll work. I'll just explain a little bit more about how you can work with your local media to make a difference in your part of the world. Just in terms of a little bit of background, really, I spent 20 years working in local newspapers, doing all kinds of jobs as a reporter, as a news editor, and as an editor latterly of a regional daily and a weekly newspaper. So this is kind of a little bit about where I'm coming from and sharing some of my experience, hopefully to help you guys. So I guess one thing, just following on really from what Gareth had to say, and taking everything that Gareth outlined into account, what's really important, and this is, I was involved for many years in training journalists, and one of the things that we always used to hammer home to every journalist who walked through our doors was that everyone has a story to tell. And as Gareth said, it's just about finding the right strategy and the right audience for you guys to share your story with. But don't underestimate the power of sharing that at the moment is Local Media Matters, and it's a pretty good summary for what we need to think about here. I'll talk a little bit really in the context of local newspapers, weekly newspapers, but the same applies really as to whether you're thinking about a website which operates locally for you guys, television station that operates locally for yourselves. And there's a pop-up of hyper-local TV stations, hyper-local radio stations, and magazines in your community as well. So the same principle applies to lots of different things. So I think the key thing for us all to remember is that the local media is part of your community. They want to really champion your community. Part of their job is to fight your corner where it needs fought, to hold people to account where it's appropriate to hold people to account, but also to sort of promote campaigns and celebrate successes that mean something to their communities. So yes, sometimes some of the news that local media has to report is sad news, it's powerful news, as we've seen during the coronavirus pandemic, but also to give, it's all about local media is all about reflecting local life. And to reflect local life, we also have to celebrate successes as well, and give people a well-deserved pat on the back when they need it, or when they deserve it. Obviously, with that in mind, it's important to remember that journalists who work on regional publications, regional radio stations, regional TV, they want to hear your stories, but importantly, they want to tell them as well. They honestly really do not bite. So don't be fearful of coming forward with your story. And it's important to remember, as part of the community, that their audience is your audience. So one thing I always remember is when I first started out in regional newspapers, the first newspaper proprietor who I worked for reminded me on my first day that as soon as I step outside the office, our readers are the people I will meet on the streets, and they will not be long in taking you to task if you don't think you've got something right. So I think it's important to remember that a lot of the time that your businesses, your causes, your interests are the same as the local newspapers. They're part of your community. They're speaking to the same people that you are as well. And I think one of the interesting things of COVID-19, as Phil has already touched upon really, is the fact that we have seen a real return to localism. And as bizarre as this may sound, that's been reflected in the pages of our weekly newspaper, particularly the weekly newspapers, but in the pages of our regional newspapers generally, on the websites, and all the other local medium as well. We have seen a real return of interest in hyper-local stories. And I was speaking to one weekly newspaper editor yesterday who actually commented on the fact that she edits a really hyper-local set of newspapers in the south of Scotland, but they have become even more hyper-local in the last 3 months. And for all the heartbreaking and hard news that they've had to report on as relates to coronavirus, they've also seen an increase in the number of stories that they do, which generally make us smile. So we've seen stories of the great lengths people have gone to help their neighbours during COVID-19, or how communities have done initiatives to thank key workers, or have done kind acts to just cheer themselves up. So what we have seen is real, as Phil says, we've seen a real return to localism. But for all the hard news, we've seen a real resurgence in stories which make us smile. And I think that's only natural that people have looked for that in among the circumstances in which we've found ourselves recently. So just a quick run through of some do's and don'ts for me for when you're dealing with the media, particularly the local media. So please do get to know your local journalists. As I've said, they're part of the community. They want to know you. They want to get to know you. They don't bite. I think obviously it probably goes without saying that to make your story attractive to that journalist who you build the relationship with, you need to make that story interesting, and you need to be relevant to the area in which that local media works. So, for example, the classic is, as you get in touch with the journalist to tell them your story, don't get bogged down in detail. Tell the story as you would tell a person you meet on the street. It's a cliche, but it's absolutely true. As well, though, when you're getting in touch, please do know your detail. So the basics of who, what, where, when, and why. And crucially as well, again, it's an old-fashioned phrase, and it's as true for the web as it is for newspapers, but faces sell in terms of the local media. People like to see people. So please do think about what the photograph's going to be to go with your story. You might want to provide one if you write a press release, or you might want to highlight the ability to the local media for them to come and get a photograph, and also video as well, crucially. Different publishers have different sort of policies over video use, but please do think pictures and video as you try and be interactive. And as well, sometimes, especially in some of the situations where you guys work and in the current climate, you will sometimes be asked if you'd like to comment on more contentious issues. So if you are, always be clear in your response to those issues. And don't be afraid at the same time of, if you need to actually, if you're contacted, about the latest retail study, you're contacted to comment on the local context of that by a journalist, don't be afraid of saying, actually, I've not yet had a chance to read that report or catch up on that news. Can you give me, a little bit of time and I'll gather my thoughts and come back to you. Never feel as though you're pressurised to answer on the spot, no matter how hard you're being pushed for an answer there and then. And I guess some don'ts, really, when you're dealing with the local media. Don't hide the human impact of a story. That goes back to the whole, think pictures as well. If your story affects people, tell them that, because it's the human impact and how, people interested in people, how that story relates to the people in, the local area is a huge selling point. Never be loose with the facts, please. Always be factually accurate. I'll share a story with you that once I was covering a major sporting event in the north of England, and the local council leader was asked how much that event had brought to the region's economy, and he came out with a fantastic figure, which everyone used. And he was later challenged as to where that figure came from, and he said, "I think that just sounds good." So please never be loose with the facts, because they can run away with you. Never, please, send a news release then disappear, because if there are follow-up questions or the chance of a follow-up interview and you're not around, then your opportunity is lost. That's one of the big bugbear of regional journalists. Never leave it until the last minute to get in touch. You might think that your local newspaper comes out on a Friday, but please don't leave it till 4:45 on a Thursday to try and get your story in. Be mindful of the deadlines that your own local publications run to. And never think that just sending an email will do. News desks get hundreds and hundreds of emails every day, so never be afraid of following up your email with a phone call, especially once you've got to know the journalist, just to flag up that you've sent something in. So that really sums up where I am. I think it's important to remember that the work that each of you does in your community makes a difference. It's relevant to your local media, and you should never ever be afraid to make your voices heard. It's obviously great when national media come in and cover the big positive events that you've got going on, but I think day in, day out, week in, week out, your local media is there. It's part of your community, and you can really work with them to make a tremendous difference to what you do. So thank you very much.
That was excellent, Chris. Thanks for that. Again, I think the important message there is just don't underestimate the power of your local media, and remember that it's increasingly a multi-channel route to your audience in terms of a blended print, digital, social media, and web. So as we move 29th next week, next Monday, we start to move towards reopening some of our non-essential shops, and our town centres start to come back to something closer to reality. We move into phase 3. I think it's really, really important that we start building confidence that people can move safely. The environments that we create within our town centres are safe. So these are the sorts of messages and campaigns that we need to be running now to encourage people back in. But fundamentally, COVID is not going to go away quickly, and that's to the benefit of our towns. You think you've got a new captive audience. Lots of office workers will not return to work until the tail end of phase 3, could be months away. So you've got lots of potential local spend sitting on your doorstep who normally would disappear to a job in a city, and now they're working remotely, agilely from home. And they're probably still not confident enough to make long journeys to buy goods. So try to connect with that audience, because we've seen the bids in the first phase of funding through the BIDS Resilience Fund do an awful lot of really good work reconnecting retailers with local communities and building that relationship. Without further ado, so thanks, Chris. Without further ado, video is a really great way of building content, and one of our best content creators that we've worked with over the years is Jamie in Enterprise Screen. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Jamie. Thanks, Jamie.
Good morning, everybody. that's been extremely interesting so far, and I will hopefully keep you on time for 10 minutes, looking specifically at video. I'll quickly share my screen here so that we can start looking at video in particular. And what I've been asked to talk about in particular is the difference between regional TV and addressable TV. Now, a lot of people and a lot of companies will think television is a long way away from them. It used to be the kind of pinnacle of the advertising tree. In some ways, it still is. But it's become much more affordable, much more usable, and probably much more relevant to this group in particular. Enterprise Screen specializes in video. Everything we've done right from the very beginning on VHS cassettes starts with video and ends with video. And our mantra is right message, right place, right time. The reason I think it's important to keep that in your head at all times is because television is obviously one of the biggest mediums out there, and you need to make sure that the message is right, the place is right, and you're telling people at the right time. I think you've heard from Chris and Gareth that that's quite important no matter what you use. So I'll try and zip through this as quickly as I possibly can, because this is a big topic, and I'm sure all of you are considering using video more now anyway. The content cycle that we work to, which is very similar to what you've heard previously, we're usually brought in by the time you've decided on an objective, so in this first stage here. And our first step is always to look at the audience. Who do you want to speak to? Then we move into content creation, so that's making video usually, or visual tools, so creating some video content. Then we look at how we're going to distribute that content. So there's lots of methodologies out there. You've seen some of the social media ones. You can also consider the television route here that I'm going to tell you a little bit about. And then the last step for us is analytics. So let's look at what happened when we went through that cycle and go back to the beginning. And that's one of the most important things that I would recommend that people take away today is if you don't keep going back through the cycle, you're not going to get better at it. And actually, you're going to cost yourself money going forwards, because if you keep going through this cycle, whether this be a Facebook cycle or an Instagram cycle or a TV cycle, you will save yourself money because you'll be getting better and better and more focused as you go forwards. So in the spirit of storytelling, I want to tell you a story. And I'm going to give you a little bit of two stories here, hopefully to illustrate the differences in these two options with television for you. They're illustrative. They're not, exact examples, but we've used both methodologies, and we continue to use both methodologies with our clients. So let's talk about my ice cream. So Jamie's Ice Cream is an out-of-town location. We make and sell ice cream. People usually come to us. It's well known near the factory, but we want to sell more. So the first step is we've identified Squareshare, as I'm calling it, as the target audience for our ice cream. And along comes the option. John is giving us the option to sell ice cream via his regional ice cream van. He's going to charge us £10,000. He's got a wonderful jingle. I'm sure you're all recalling childhood jingles or current jingles from ice cream vans. And what John is offering to do is drive throughout Squareshare 3 times per day for 2 weeks solid for £10,000. So he's going to drive all up and down all of these streets 3 times per day for 2 weeks for us. After 2 weeks, we have seen a jump in sales. We have sold £20,000 worth additional. We've had a 3,000% increase in hits to our website. Everybody knows our jingle, and the ice cream is very well known. Jamie's Ice Cream is well known throughout Squareshare. What our option is, well, we like that sales, so let's do that again. So let's get John back out in his ice cream. He's going to go around Squareshare 3 times per day for 2 more weeks. Let's see what happens. Well, we've had an £18,000 increase in sales, which is great. 1,500% increase in the website. So people have kind of, seen us and had a look, worked out who we are, but we're definitely selling more ice cream. The jingle is well known. Interestingly, people are now saying to us that they saw our ice cream with John's van up and down the streets. I hope you're all sticking with me with this. I'm going somewhere with it. So what's happened in the sales? So we're going to go through that cycle. We've had some good sales around the bank holiday weekend. We've had, not so many good sales, maybe around a rainy weekend, and great sales on a sunny weekend. Because the ice cream van has been out doing the rounds now. I'm sure you've all spotted this. Sometimes when John has been driving up and down the streets, people aren't in, so they haven't seen John. But at other times, the kids are desperately waiting for John because they know that he's coming. And of course, we have rainy days and we're still selling ice cream. But the methodology that John is using is as that shape dictates. And the cycle that a lot of companies get into is, well, we've seen an increase of sales, therefore let's just keep doing that because the methodology works, let's keep doing it. The most important step in any of this spend, no matter where you put your content out, is to get back to the analytics and to understand who bought and where was most effective. And I'm sure all of you are doing this, and I just want to re-emphasize how important it is. So just for simplicity here, we've looked at the audience analytics for SquareShare and worked out that the biggest spend that we're getting is in the red quadrant here, which has young families, retired couples, sunny days, beach homes and parks. Again, this is illustrative. I'm not suggesting that it's only retired couples and young families that enjoy ice cream, but that is where we're seeing the majority of our sales. As you can see in the other areas, low population density, maybe a lactose intolerant population up here, they're not buying much ice cream. Sunny days, offices, they're buying some ice cream over here, and these are commuters. So these are maybe the people that are missing our, when it's going out with John. So here's another methodology. So Jenny comes along with her addressable ice cream van, and she says she can also help us sell. So her campaign is going to cost us £4,000. It's going to run for 4 weeks. She's going to knock everybody's door in the red quadrant, but, well, not everybody's door, sorry. She's going to knock the doors of families and older couples, and actually she's only going to go out on sunny days. After 4 weeks, we've seen £15,000 worth of sales and a 500% increase in our website traffic. The ice cream is well known in that concentrated area of SquareShare. So what's happening in that technique is we're very much aware that on sunny days, we're selling more ice cream. So first of all, we're saying, let's go out on sunny days, Jenny. Second of all, we're narrowing down our audience because we've done the analytics and we know that the older couples love it and the kids can't get enough ice cream. Actually, to tell the story in sunny weather, but I don't know where it is, what it's like where you are, but it is very rainy right now. So Jenny would not be out knocking my door today. What I've tried to illustrate there with Jenny and John are the two versions of television that is available to you right now. There is regional television, which covers a wide area, allows you to effectively tell your story to a mass audience. For this product, you would have high impact in the summer months, obviously, because it's more chance of being sunny, maybe high impact on bank holidays and weekends because people will be at home and available to buy your ice cream. You will get great brand visibility. People will know your theme tune. People will come up to you and say they saw your ice cream van, they saw your TV ad. And you will develop sales across a wide area. So the whole area will be told about your message. But it could cost more money, and as a result, it might waste some money because remember that blue quadrant up there, nobody's really interested in your product, so you're still paying to hit those people. With Jenny's methodology, the addressable TV, it's highly targeted. You can target it for sunshine or for rain. You can kind of pick it weather. You can narrow right down your audience. You can say only show this to households X and Y. You'll have sales across a smaller area and possibly smaller sales and smaller impact, but the cost should be lower. And you're also much, much more targeted. And what I would say is important with both of these methodologies is to always remember and go back to the beginning and look at your analytics with what you've done. So like Gareth and Chris have said, video is exactly the same, regardless of which method you're going to use for your distribution. You have to know your audience. So geography is very, very important. When people buy, you know, is it sunny days? Is it hot days? Is it the build up to Christmas? Is it, you know, whatever time of year that is? Why did he buy? How did he buy? And what we say is change your message for each audience. I think there's a lot of good advertising out there right now that is very, very targeted. And you have to think about this, not, you know, everybody's not necessarily looking for ice cream right now. Maybe the wrong time of day right now to be thinking of ice cream. And you might want to look at those patterns in your own analytics. What we would recommend is that you try to use as many of the media as you can. You can try to use them at the same time. I think we've demonstrated that there's a a great strength in using campaigning tools, whether it be big TV alongside social. So you can't put all your eggs in one basket, or maybe even two different versions of TV. So moving the budget around a little bit to get brand build and then to target. So that's the combined approach. And always go back and look at your data. And of course, you know, much as I'm talking about TV here, one of the most important things I would say is don't forget that social can work. And the way I use social, the way our team uses social for TV, is to go through this cycle much faster, to go through the audience identification. I'm sure you've all, you know, seen the tools that are available via the social media platforms. Get your content out there, distribute it for a much lower budget, look at the analytics, and then go back through it again. Once you've done that, TV is going to be better. It's going to behave better for you, and it's going to give you a much better targeting. So for example, with Scotland's Times, if you were thinking place-based, yes, if you want to tell everybody that your town or your area is great, brand build regional television is a great idea. If you are having a specific event that's maybe a food festival or a music festival, you might want to look at audience specific, because you're going to know the demographic that are more likely to come. So I hope that was a quick introduction to addressable television. If anybody wants to talk more about that, please drop me a message. But there are a lot of options available to you, and the costs are perhaps not as scary as you might think.
That's great, Jamie. Thanks very much for that. And yes, I can concur with what you've just said. I think both STV and Sky, who we've been dealing with recently around our national campaign, can really drive down to a local level. So you can target right down to specific postcode areas, and it is more affordable than what most people currently think. I'm going to invite the speakers and thank everybody for giving us very, very useful content today. But I'm going to ask the speakers back in, because we've had some questions coming through on the Q&A. We don't have time for a lot of questions because we're trying to keep on schedule, but I'm just going to pick out the most relevant ones. Got a question here, question one, which probably goes to Message Matters. So I'll allow Chris or Gareth to decide, maybe more related to Chris's presentation. The question is, why does engaging local media always cost so much? Are adverts the only option? Should you have pre-prepared press releases, or can you just have a conversation with your local journalist? Maybe Chris, you're probably best placed.
I guess maybe to take that one in reverse is that, you know, no, you don't always need a press release, and some of that comes back down to the relationships that you might build with the journalists who work in your area. You know, a quick phone call, a quick conversation, a quick call to the office when you're able to, just to chat through your idea never does any harm. It may be that the journalist asks you to follow up and put a few details down on paper, but by all means, that first approach certainly doesn't have to be by a press release all the time. In terms of, is advertising the only option? No, it's not. As we've touched on, you know, sharing your story, you know, advertising can be very powerful for your business, but sharing your story can be equally as powerful if you do it in an engaging and interesting way. And in terms of expense, you know, what I would say is never be afraid to try and negotiate a good deal as you go through. One of the things that we can all be guilty of sometimes is forgetting that our regional newspapers are businesses as well. And you know, like a lot of businesses right now, they've got their own challenges to face. But you know, advertising by all means isn't the only option. Don't be afraid to negotiate, and you know, don't be afraid to share your stories with them.
Yeah, that's great. We've got a question I think I'm going to have to take on indoor markets, arcades and shopping malls, which are currently not opening on Monday the 29th. If they don't have essential shops within them. I think it's important to recognise that Scotland has taken a very staged approach, a very cautious approach, quite rightly, in terms of protecting life. And we're seeing other parts of the world that have gone back a wee bit faster, starting to see spikes in infections. So the indoor arcades, shopping malls and markets are likely to reopen once we've got a sense of how we can manage public space and confine public space. So I think maybe even before phase 3 officially launches, we'd be looking to review how we can get our shopping malls back open again. The Scottish Retail Consortium has issued some very good and helpful guidance this morning on how consumers need to behave in the high street. We've shared that on our social media platforms, so please try and get a look at that, because I think that's going to help inform your discussions at a local level. Behind the scenes, Scottish Government, the Planning and Architects Department have been reaching out widely to look at how this type of issue can be addressed and how we manage civic realm, public space, movement of people in a safe and controlled way, particularly as we move beyond the 29th of June. So I understand your frustration, but it is being looked at the highest level. There's no vested interest in keeping our economy shut down. Scottish Government have clearly said they want to reopen when it's safe to do so, and as soon as it's safe to do so, and that's still the message that we have. So bear with us, it's probably a matter of weeks. Question to Gareth, I think, what is the best medium to reach a hyper-local audience and to encourage people back to town?
That's a really good question. I'm going to start with on the fences, and it depends on your audience, and it depends who you're trying to target. But let's just talk generally. One of the things I say to clients a lot is Facebook advertising is a really, really cheap and effective way to reach a significant number of people. It's very, very sophisticated in terms of who you can target, and it's really not a huge amount of money. So, let's take a local authority who wants to run a, shop local campaign, for a budget of a couple of £100 for a month, you could really do something very, very good in terms of the number of people you could reach with that. So I think as a specific tip, Facebook advertising is really important. The other thing is, don't forget the power of what we call like hyper-local stakeholders. So there's lots of community newsletters that are out there and community councils. So think about the wider network, because they themselves all have quite captive audiences. So think about, don't forget your hyper-local newsletters that are going through people's doors as well. But I'd say local authorities are strapped for cash at the moment. That's no secret. So I would focus on really good social media advertising with good content and getting local influencers and other organizations to spread your message for you as well as sort of advocates.
Okay, that's really helpful. And we've just got time for, well, just to make it clear to delegates, we will be including in the post-event report contact details of all of our speakers. So you can follow up with the guys afterwards. We will be including Chris and Gareth and Jamie's contact details. But final question for Jamie. Jamie, what role would display screens or billboards potentially have to connect with local communities who aren't used to shopping in that sort of localized format?
Yeah, we've used them. We're about to use them for another campaign. I think they are great. And I think if you know that you've noticed them yourself, then you know that these methodologies can work. I think one of the things that I'm most keen to do, I definitely prefer digital to the print versions, just because you can do a little bit more. They're a bit more eye-catching, and certainly they're appearing a lot more around the place. The difficulty for me with any public space or out-of-home advertising is tracking it. I think anything that's hard to get hard data back from is always a little bit squiffy for me, and we have used it for multiple campaigns, and you can do it very simply. It's very simple animation can do it, and I think it has worked well. But I do have an example that I kind of keep in our office when we ever get back there, of a bus that I saw. That's an out-of-home version. You can obviously put your ads on buses. I saw a bus driving around Glasgow multiple times on my way to the office, advertising a thing for Edinburgh. Something in Edinburgh. It wasn't just like come to Edinburgh. It was like an Edinburgh initiative on the back of a bus, and I took this picture because I was like, you can't control that if your bus is in the wrong place. So I hope that answered that question. I think, yes, it works as part of a bigger campaign. And I love Gareth saying Facebook. Absolutely. I use it for other brands that are my own companies. We've got a small business to consumer company, and Facebook has been magnificent for a very small spend.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Jamie. I'm just going to make one final comment before handing over to Gareth, who's going to take you through part 2 of this morning's session. There's been a question about the national campaign. So it's just to make people aware that in the background, we have been discussing with Scottish Government, how do we get this, how do we consolidate as much of this local economic growth as possible? And we're going to launch a national campaign probably as we get towards phase 3. But as soon as we have got final sign-off on some content created, we will be sharing this with all of you guys, because the idea here is for you maybe to fit in underneath that umbrella, so you can actually benefit from, you know, one big national towns recovery campaign, the Love Local, and then just hook into that to amplify what we're going to do at the national level. So I have to say, I've really enjoyed all the speakers this morning. I've learned a lot from my days in marketing. It was 4 Ps. And I've now learned about East and Oasis and a lot of really good content. So personally, I'd just like to thank the speakers, and I'm going to hand over now to Gareth, who's going to take you through some of our best examples of strategies on the ground. So thanks everybody, enjoy the rest of the seminar.
Thank you very much, Phil. So I suppose it's all good and well having myself and Chris and Jamie talk about data and strategies and theory and all of that there. But in the second half, we're going to focus on some really good real life examples in Scotland of organisations that have done this really well. And hopefully you can take some very practical learning from their success and embed it into what you do locally. So in this session, we've got Diane Brown, who's the manager at Alloa First. We've got Danielle McCrory-Smith, who's the manager at Go Forth Stirling, and we've got Kelly Kirkness from Kirkwall Bid as well. And as with before, each of our panelists will speak for a few moments, and then afterwards we'll have some Q&A. So I'm just going to move straight into it and hand over to Diane from Alloa First. Diane.
Morning, everybody. I think Alison's just going to put the first slide up. That's great. So I'm the project manager at Alloa First. For those that you don't know Alloa, it's small town, central Scotland. We've got the smallest local authority in Scotland. So we generate about 120,000 in bid levy. When the Bid Resilience Fund was announced, we did a quick survey, and the results of the survey were quite interesting. What came back was loud and clear was that the businesses in Alloa Town Centre wanted to continue with a brand that we had started about a year ago, which is our 8 icons covering all the types of bid levy payers in the town centre. So they said they wanted to continue in the marketing campaign, promoting the town centre and getting ready to relaunch the town centre once the businesses were back up and running again. So we had a look, we're speaking with the council all the way along with this, and they've been fantastic support to us. We've managed to spend a lot more money on the town centre than we would ever have been able to do had it not been a partnership approach. So the first thing we did was the Love Local magazine, which was already on our radar. Alison, I don't know if you want to put the next slide up. So we realised that COVID obviously was going to be high on the agenda. So we took our 8 icons that we use throughout all our branding and marketing, and we turned them into COVID, know the signs, keep Alloa safe. So that's now become part of our new COVID brand. Hopefully it won't be for too long, but we're now using these logos side by side in a lot of our marketing. So the next slide, Alison. So Love Local magazine, we had already scheduled in to work with this company. We've done 2 other publications with them last year, a summer edition and a winter edition. It's a lady called Karen Tully. She does Love Local Mag as her website, and she does a publication in Stirlingshire and a publication in Clackmannanshire. Twice previously, we've paid for half the publication, and it's allowed us to do a really strong shop local campaign. we felt it was very important that we continued with this. We weren't sure how our resources were going to be, but we thought that we should try and keep people reminded that we do have a town centre to come back to, whatever form that may be. So we partnered with Clackmannanshire Third Sector Interface, who are very keen to promote the third sector organisations that were working really well, delivering food parcels, setting up helplines, etc., etc. So they paid for half the publication and we paid for the other half of the publication out of the Bid Resilience Fund. And that allowed us to put a really strong Clackmannanshire Alloa publication together with lots of information, very topical, how to support the high street if businesses are closed, by tipping, buying gift vouchers, leaving reviews, etc., etc. So that worked really well for the third sector and for ourselves, and it's been really well received. It also helped the Love Local magazine out considerably, because all their advertisers pulled, and she was left having a real decision: was should she go ahead at all with the publication or not? So we literally hijacked it, and if you want to click on the link when it's sent round after, you can see it was divided up into different categories: love food and drink, love health well-being, motoring, business finance. Sorry, if you want to go back, yeah, but no, next one. So in Love Local, yeah, so it went to every Clackmannanshire home, free distribution through the Royal Mail, so we definitely knew it hit the doors, and we've had really positive feedback. The second campaign that we looked at, quite interestingly, Alison, can you go back a slide? That's it. Is the Alloa Advertiser. Now, it's been quite interesting hearing the other guys talking about local advertising. We have always shied away. We've had a great relationship with the Alloa Advertiser in putting out press releases, but we've never taken any advertising with them, purely because we didn't think it was value for money. But we had quite a long conversation with them when COVID hit and the town centre basically shut down, and they were in jeopardy of losing the paper. They furloughed their staff, and we felt it was really important that as a levy payer and our strong presence in the community, we needed to support them. So we actually invested in a 3-month campaign, which has literally gone live. And so although we're paying for it, we're still getting quite a lot of press release content as well, but it's really given us a lot of meat for our Facebook pages as well. So it's, again, the Shop Local, Shop Safe campaign. It's what we call a listicle. So 10 businesses are promoted this month online. That also has come out in hard copy in one of the paper editions. And then we've got all these adverts that you see at the side here. The 5 different banner adverts are throughout the online presence, and we've also partnered that up using our own Facebook and social media channels as well. So it's all linked in together. When you click on the advert, it takes you to the Alloa First website. So our website traffic's now growing as well. So that's the Alloa Advertiser. It's been great feedback. The businesses that have got involved with it absolutely love it. So we're continuing that for the next 3 months. This article that we first did is about businesses, supporting businesses that are currently open. The next one is looking at ones that are going to reopen. And then the last one is about businesses that are still maybe unable to open, but how we can still support them by buying gift vouchers, leaving reviews, etc. So it's all just making sure everybody's still aware that the town centre will be back to normal at some point. So the next slide. So these are 3 posters that were designed to fit with the rest of the town centre branding that we're doing, which is very much in conjunction with Clackmannanshire Council. They've been hugely supportive and have given us quite a large bit of budget to help provide this. We didn't want the message to be COVID-19, road closed, keep safe distance. We wanted it to be a friendlier message. So really, the council have handed over our brand to the town centre, and we're working with them to make sure that the message is keep your safe distance, wear face coverings, wash your hands, but also the thank you for visiting and the welcome back message. We're very keen that people want to feel safe and not that it's you know, a dangerous place to come and visit. So we've got starter kits which have been handed out, and as part of the starter kit, along with hand sanitizer, gloves and visors, we're putting in these three A3 size posters, and they can also download them if they want an A4 size just from our website. So that's the posters. So moving on to the next slide. The lamppost banners. We did a local heroes lamppost banner campaign, and it was really successful. The general public loved it. We had requests for could people get the banners when we were finished with them, and we saw that very much as a good source for getting out the welcome back message, but also the keep safe message. So we've designed new banners. Literally the turnaround time was 12 days from start to finish. Council were very supportive in the design side and the installation side, and they also funded the banners. So there's now 30 of them up at the entry and exit points, saying welcome back, thanks for visiting. And on the flip side is the know the signs, keep safe, keep Alloa safe message. So that's the lamppost banners. The next slide. So we've rolled that out even further. We've now got bus shelter posters being designed, looking at locations in Alloa and a little bit further afield as well in Clackmannanshire. And our town centre planters, we're putting on welcome back, thank you for visiting, stickers on that as well, which all ties in really well with the lamppost banners. And then the next one, so we've commissioned 10 PVC banners, again paid for by the council. All this sort of signage branding has been paid for by the council, so that's really freed us up to do the Alloa advertiser campaign. So we've got these banners, again, they're going slightly out with the town centre, out with the bid area. We never do anything out with the bid area normally, but we did think it was an opportunity now to encourage the wider community to come into the town centre. And we've also got queuing banners. Some of the local businesses, the cafes, their queues are running into the local butcher, which is running into the chemist. So we've now got 10 of these queue barriers that the local businesses are getting. They're taking responsibility for putting out and taking in at night. So we've got these on the way to be delivered next week as well. And the next slide. Next slide, Alison. Oh, that's great. We've got 25, oh, sorry, back one. Nearly finished, folks. Yes, the bollard covers, we've got 25. They're not as close as these. They're going to be at 2 metres apart. We've also got floor stencils. I haven't put a slide up of that, which work in conjunction with these, just to make sure everybody does keep a safe distance. And the last one are frames that we've got made. We're pedestrianising the town centre. So, yeah. So to work with the council, rather than putting out a message, the road is closed, we've got the roads are closed, but we're open and welcome to Alloa. So they're going, instead of the road closure signs, we're hoping it's a softer message. And that's what we're doing in Alloa. Happy for anybody to get in touch if you want any information on how we've gone about this.
Thanks very much, Dan. That was great. I'm just going to move straight on to Danielle at Go Forth Stirling. Danielle.
Hi everybody. Thanks for having me. We've got some slides prepared as well. So Go Forth Stirling is very close by Alloa. We are a fairly medium-sized bid. We have around 400 businesses in our district and a levy of approximately 320,000 per year. So if you just flick through these slides, sorry, I can't access them, and I'll just kind of cover what we're doing. So our COVID-19 communication is covered, you know, newsletters being one of the most important things that we put out every week. We always did before, however, the subscriptions to those are significant now with regards to COVID response, and businesses are really engaging. I'll cover our partnership communication a little bit later, social media and website, our use of local radio stations and our local press, our website and online directory, and our various branded campaigns and initiatives, and what we are doing with feedback. Just on to the next. So our newsletters, these are some examples of our weekly newsletters. The content and branding is really important to us at Go Forth. We like to make them responsive, i.e. download guidance. Here's poster templates, here's risk assessment templates. We like to have something that has a click-through on all of our newsletters, and we always finish them, as you can see in the bottom right there, with tag us on your social media, please provide feedback. One change that we have implemented at Go Forth Stirling is we are looking for feedback on everything. Our press officer is able to use quotes, positive or negative, to help us learn from. So at every point possible, we're trying to collate as much of that as possible. And on to the next. Next slide, thank you. So that's just some more examples of the information that we're putting out on our newsletters. Sorry, just back to the last one. It's important, we've established quite a specific brand guidelines. We like everything to have our logo, all the branding to look the same. For example, we've got there the introducing the Keeping Stirling Safe campaign, our PPE items that I'll cover a little bit later as well. They all cover a very specific look so that people recognise what the bid is bringing to them. On to the next. So our partnership, those of you I've spoken to before are aware that this was our first project in COVID, but in terms of communication, it has been key. It was really important for us to establish a partnership with the 10 key businesses that provide business support in Stirling, and be able to relay information through one website, one support email, hotline, and so that all our businesses could be signposted by us or by any of the other businesses that we're partnered with to one location for information. We thought that a collaborative approach to communication, especially through all the databases that all these businesses have, sharing what Go Forth's doing or us sharing what they're doing, and what we are doing collaboratively, was really important. And I think that helped our businesses be able to get the assistance that they needed as quick as possible, by not having lots of different businesses sharing lots of different information, all that possibly said the same message but was a little bit conflicting or confusing for them. On to the next. So another thing that has been important with us is re-establishing the brand and letting people know that Go Forth is there for them. Is we brought in a white label training platform. So a lot of bids will do training. Some people have a white label platform as well. But the idea behind that was it allows us to adapt and brand it as our own. We thought it was really important that Go Forth Stirling is delivering the training rather than a third-party company and advertising them or their services. When people log in or have the credentials to undertake some of the training that we're providing right now, it's again on the Go Forth brand, it's delivered by Go Forth, and then that's an example of some of the training courses that we are delivering at this time. On to the next. And then some of the feedback that we're getting from that. We are sending that out on a daily basis as much as possible, to try and encourage people to take part in any of the initiatives or projects that we're involved in. So collating the feedback has been really important to us, and allowing us to get as many people as possible to participate. Another important thing that we've been doing right now, we've spent a little bit of time updating our website. We think that right now it's been important that our website's getting a lot of hits along with social media, and having that looking better, delivering the right information. And we spent a lot of time looking at other business improvement districts or business support type companies to see how they relay the correct information via their website. So it's been quite a large project the last few weeks and months, making sure that our website is more up to date, that the COVID Hub has all the correct, concise information, so that our businesses and further afield can go onto the Go Forth site, see what it is that we do, and how we can help them quicker and easier. On to the next. Sorry, I should have just shared screen, it'd be easier. So our online directory, just on the last one there, Alison, back up one. So our online directory, we have been really focused on having this online directory updated as quick as possible on a daily basis. Our businesses in Stirling, and as I'm sure they are in all of the other bid districts, have been really responsive. We've been so impressed how a lot of them have been able to reopen or continue trading, but change the model and what it is that they do. And whether it be changing their opening hours, having specific key working hours, or offering a completely different service, we have created an online directory to be able to communicate that to as many people as possible, and then share all those images on our social media as well. So that's a little kind of example there on how we make sure that we are advertising our businesses and whatever their services may be, but we try and keep it all within quite a strict brand guideline, so that everyone is seeing them, whether it be social media or on the website, in the same way, and how Go Forth is putting it out there. It's not just constant shares and whatnot of social media. On to the next. On the next one, you'll see that we have some of our other campaigns in terms of that have previously been mentioned, celebrating the heroes of our town. You know, Go Forth has spent a lot of time, we've been asking for applications on anyone that is going above and beyond, any business, any individual, or any service. So we are spending a lot of time trying to make a lot of community spirit, if you like, via our communication lines, into sharing them and sharing the hard work of everyone that in Stirling, or the businesses, and if they're doing something quite unique. On to the next. And the next one, sorry. So our latest kind of project is this last one here, the posters, much like what Ala was doing as well. We are trying to light up and brighten our high street as much as possible. What we've found that as you are going around our high street, up King Street, for example, that you can see in that top image, you're not entirely sure what businesses are open. So we have distributed, and we're in the process of distributing as many of these posters as possible, to highlight all the businesses as they reopen. More shop windows get filled with something really colourful, to help promote our message that we would like everyone to remember to shop local and help us keep Stirling thriving. And then again, using the Go Forth branding and keeping Stirling safe, that we've used throughout a lot of our projects at this time. On to the next. And again, that was also downloadable via our newsletter and things like that, so that people could access it really quickly, much quicker than I've been able to distribute them. So another thing that we've been doing right now is our preparing for recovery phase. Sorry, just on the last one. The PPE supply, we have been distributing sneeze guards and social distancing stickers, not just to our district businesses, even those further afield. And those have all got quite clearly the Go Forth branding and the message, our campaign there, keeping Stirling safe. So we are almost at 1,200 items that we've distributed. Those figures have been updated again since our last order. We cannot keep enough stocks of things like that in. So that has also been thanks to our business bid resilience grant, that we've been able to supply so many of these items to our businesses. And as you drive around Stirling, even just looking in the shop windows, being able to see these sneeze guards and things on display, hopefully will give a bit of confidence into the shoppers and things as they return to the town. And the businesses as well will realise that, what Go Forth is doing to help them at this time. On to the next. And then again, as I've said before, sharing feedback has been so important to us, and being able to collate, if you just keep skipping through the next ones, you don't need to see them all, being able to collate as much of that right now and promote on our social media is, we've been able to hand that over in terms of press or in terms of news. If you just keep clicking through, our social media and whatnot, engagement has gone through the roof. So the key messages I've just kind of reiterated there, that Go Forth Stirling supporting all businesses. We've been trying to put that out in all comms, whether it be, you know, local radio. We've taken out advertising space in Stirling City Radio, which has been able to support them at this time, but also allows us to put our key messages out there every month, changing that up, what it is that we are providing. Because the last thing we want is phone calls from our levy payers saying, what's Go Forth doing for me at this time? And then also being able to have enough of that information out there at this time will hopefully help us when we do put back, you know, resend out levy invoices. When levy does resume, we're hoping that people and our businesses have realised that, you know, we have supported them at this time while we've suspended levy, and they'll possibly not be irate at receiving you know, the next lot of bills and things that we're exploring right now. So our messages with our different campaigns is Stirling's open, whether it be in the high street or online. Shop local and keep Stirling thriving. Go for Stirling's keeping Stirling safe. That's with the PPE measures. And then on to the next. In terms of our communication, thank you. We have been really keen to kind of collate the information that we've been doing, and our tips that we have is promote your PR. So PR your PR as much as possible. So whether that be, you know, a surf article or one of the local press do an article that mentions Go Forth, we then share that on all our social media, website, or newsletters, so that it has a wider reach. We encourage all feedback, whether it be positive or negative, so that we can learn from that, of course, and any third-party endorsement, being able to promote that as much as possible. In the press, sorry, just head back to that last one. In the press, oh, there we go. In the press, quoting our local businesses, in our weekly press releases, we try and ensure that at least one of the local businesses is promoted, whether it be a quote discussing, you know, the PPE or the posters or the training platform, that, you know, we quote as many of those businesses as possible. In the feedback, that also will PR them as much as they can. We include the branding everywhere and everything that we do. We hopefully never forget our weekly newsletter. Those have been invaluable in sharing the message that, you know, whether it be specific initiatives that we work on or the work of our partnership, having that weekly communication has been really important to us, to engage with our businesses, and seeing the reach of those and the engagement of those go up at this time has been great for us. And then in terms of social media engagement and reach, you know, constantly searching the Go Forth name, retweeting, reposting, tagging, sharing our local businesses or our partners only widens what our message that we do put out there, and more people engaging as much as possible. So we spent a lot of time strengthening the brand, the website, ensuring that our businesses are aware of everything that we are doing for them at this time, and that we are available, as, you know, 24/7 if you like, and making sure that, you know, all information is updated and easily accessed on our website and social media and all the other platforms that we use. So yeah, that's basically it that we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danielle. And our final presenter, but by no means least, are the current Most Beautiful High Street winners for 2019 up in Kirkwall. So I'd like to welcome Kelly Kirkness from Kirkwall Bid.
Thank you. Hi everyone. I've got a couple of slides to share. I am aware we're running a little late, so I'll be as quick as I can. I'll run through just a bit more of a general overview of things I think have worked for Kirkwall Bid campaigns that we've done either recently or in the past that I think were the most effective for us. So what we've been doing most recently, our social media channels are a really important thing for us, and we've got a lot of really good engagement from the community on there. So it was really important for us to keep that going through lockdown. You know, we were seeing less posts to share from our businesses, so we then decided that it was best for us to create some more original content, just things to put out to get continued engagement from our followers, so that we were still in the best position to promote the businesses when they reopened. So if you want to pop onto the next slide, I've got a couple of examples. So our Facebook tends to be our most used platform, and we've got just under 5,000 followers on there, and we do also share all of our content on Instagram as well. So we worked on some infographics, just simple, snappy, branded things to kind of advertise how people could be supporting local whilst the businesses were closed, buying gift vouchers, leaving reviews, sharing, liking, supporting their businesses even though they weren't able to go in and see them. And those were really well received and shared quite a lot within the community. So we think that that's something we'll continue to do as well. The middle picture there is just sort of a still from a video that we created. We saw a few other bids had made a little message videos from their members, and we were inspired to do the same. So we got some of our businesses to send in written messages, and we put together a nice video and posted that on social media. It reached 10,000 people and was shared by over 50 people. I got a really good response. All of the stuff that we're doing on social media just now, we're not doing any paid promotion, everything, we're just focusing on sort of our organic reach and naturally trying to grow our platforms. We are one of the smallest bids. I think we have the smallest levy income. So, for us, it's all about what we can do with the least amount of budget that has the biggest impact, and, effective, engaging content that doesn't cost us a lot. So yeah, the video was really a great example of the community engaging with what we were posting. The other sort of screen grab in the corner there is from our STV local lifeline campaign. So STV got in touch and offered us a spot on their local lifeline adverts, which were across all of the STV platforms. So we were really delighted to take them up on that offer. It just had our logo and our website and a little bit about what we were doing, and that of course drove traffic to our website. Our website has all of our business listings and all of our news articles, so it was really good to get some traffic onto there, and we did see an increase in page visits because of that. So that was a really nice little experience. It's something that we never would normally be able to afford, so yeah, we were really grateful to STV for the chance to do that. Also in the corner there, just messages that we get, our inbox on our Facebook page is open for the public, so we quite often get messages of thanks for businesses, or little stories of businesses that have gone above and beyond. So we like to make little graphics of those and share them on social media, and encourage our followers to comment underneath with their experiences. And it's a nice little boost for our members to get that positive feedback when they've been working so hard to keep things going. As well as that, we're obviously sharing all of the updates from our members across all of our social media, and then we tend to collate that once a week into our members newsletter, our public newsletter, which goes out with kind of a snippet of what we've been sharing online. We tend to share 200 to 250 member posts per month, and each of those posts tends to reach about 1,500 people, so it's a nice little boost for some of the smaller businesses. We've got a town centre with lots of independent, really small retailers, so that extra boost to their social media channels, I think, has been really appreciated during lockdown. So if you want to pop onto the next slide, just an example of not during lockdown, but something that we found worked really well for us is more sort of interactive campaigns. So we did a bit of treasure hunt. We launched our town city gift card, so our Kirkwall gift card, we launched in December, and since then we've done a couple of sort of scavenger hunt type social media trails, which have gone down so well and have received so much positive feedback. So this one in the photo was for Valentine's Day, so we had a £10 gift card attached to a single red rose in 10 different businesses on the high street, and our clues were posted on our social media page, and this time they were a song with lyrics that related to that particular business. So they were posted on the hour throughout the day, so that people were engaged for the whole day, and the first person to get there got to claim the rose and the gift card. they were collected so fast. People were tagging each other, running into the shops, trying to collect these gift cards, and it just was something for quite minimal input and such a good outcome. And it's something that really our local community remembers things like that, and it makes our brand more relatable. And I think then we're sort of in a better position to put out the messaging, because they've had that positive experience with us and the gift cards, and getting that little something for free. So yeah, little campaigns like that I think have been not much spend but a huge amount of impact. So things like that we're going to continue to try and do. Local press, we're lucky that we have a really good relationship with our local newspaper, and they always do run our press releases. We have our chairperson is doing a weekly column at the moment, just with a bit of a it's called the Diary of a Shopkeeper, so a bit of a kind of news from the high street for the community. So it's going really well. Our local radio station is subscribe to our newsletters, so we'll send something out, and if it's something they think that they could maybe run a story on, they'll give us a call 10 minutes later and we'll do a quick interview, and they'll run that the next day. So yeah, they've been a really good support for us, and obviously keeping the communication with them ongoing has been really beneficial. Other platforms throughout Orkney we link with, orkney.com, it's more tourist facing, but we use that to promote any sort of campaigns we're doing with our gift card, and we've seen a real uptake in people out with Orkney ordering gift cards, either for family and friends in Orkney or as gifts for people who might be visiting. Of course, not just right now, but that's something we'll continue to do, linking up with our other organisations and seeing where we can work together to promote our campaigns. So I think that's about it. I'll keep it short and sweet. But yeah, if any questions, anyone can email me. I think we're just really focusing on the community engagement and trying to keep our brand nice and friendly, so that we can help the businesses create a sort of safe environment when they open again, and make the community feel a bit more comfortable.
Thanks so much, Kelly. They were, I have to say, as a communications and PR professional, those are three really fantastic examples of place-based communications, really, really high quality. So anybody in this call can learn a huge amount from looking at those three case studies, and especially what you can do with a limited budget. And we're running very tight in time, so in bid to kind of keep it just to the 10 minutes, we will respond to kind of all of the detailed questions, or STP will, in the feedback report. But what I'd like to do, just to round off and give the final word to our three really new panelists, is if you could give one really practical tip to people on this webinar about delivering really, really good campaigns and communications locally, what would it be rather? And we'll go in reverse order. So Kelly, what would your one piece of advice be?
I guess knowing your audience. We tend to tailor our advertising on Facebook or Instagram. We know we've got quite different audiences on both platforms. So I think we tend to think about what will be most well received on each of those platforms, and try and tailor it to and make it quite open communication. We welcome comments, we engage with the comments, we leave our inbox open, so that it's an interactive experience for our followers, and people know that we're kind of approachable and they can contact us.
Great. Danielle, what would your piece of advice be?
Ours would just be much the same, but engaging with our businesses in every way possible. Anything that they are doing or offering, share that in every way possible, and tag, retweet, whatnot. The power of social media has a lot more engagement than even the web or newsletters and things. As important as they are.
And last but by no means least, Dan and Alva, you're on mute, I'm afraid. So
Hi, I endorse both with what the girls said there, but I think partnership working as well is the way to go forward. It's much easier if somebody puts together a good story and you can be tagged in as part of that. So we've got lots of good community organisations, and they do see us as the business element to that. So it just makes life a lot easier for content, for a lot of things, if you tag onto the men's shed and what they're doing. our local business gateway have been fantastic. So it just makes life a bit easier if you're hooked into all these other organisations rather than everybody trying to be the sole point of contact.
Great. Well, thank you very much to all of our panellists today. And just on behalf of Phil, thank you from Scotland's Towns Partnership for coming along. We'll collate as much of the questions as we can and get them out in the post-event feedback. But in the meantime, we hope you're staying safe, and we hope you've enjoyed and found this session useful, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon. Have a lovely day. Thanks.